Hello, I'm Girish Menon. I'm the Chief Executive of ActionAid UK based in London. ActionAid is an international organization working across 40 countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We work with women and girls living in poverty in the global south and support them in realizing their rights. I'm delighted to be here today in your midst. Teens in AI, what an amazing concept. What I'm really inspired by is the thinking behind increasing the diversity and inclusion in AI. And I'm quite conscious of the fact that there are participants from 40 cities around the world. So it's truly going to be an amazing event. And I know there's an amazing lineup of speakers and mentors and experts who are all there participating in this program and supporting it. So it's going to be truly an amazingly creative venture. Trust me, I know nothing about AI. I've read about it, I've heard about it, but don't ask me any questions on AI. But I do recognize the importance that AI has in an increasingly digital world. And the next decade, AI is going to be such a huge part of anything and everything that we do. It's already a huge part. So I'm sure that all the young minds out there will come up with an amazing range of smart and sharp ideas that will hugely enrich the discussion and bring some amazing solutions to what we are trying to achieve. I know you've got some very interesting challenges in front of you. I'm going to speak about the challenge on empowerment. How can we inform and empower communities to stay safe and healthy in the midst of a COVID-19 outbreak? So there is a narrative that we are in it together because it's affecting all countries, rich or poor. It's affecting cities, it's affecting villages, it's affecting people across all races, all religions. It knows no borders, it knows no boundaries. But is that true? Give it a bit of thought. My view is that some people have the privilege of having access to resources, having access to information, which helps them in building a resilience towards overcoming the challenge much better than many others. Whereas many others have been at the receiving end of a whole range of inequalities or injustices that make them very marginal to society, that make them very weak or vulnerable. So that's the challenge in front of us. How do we reach out to people who are most affected or worst affected as a result of this crisis? In ActionAid's work around the world, what we have seen and what we see now currently is that women and girls are worst affected. Why is that so? There are three reasons. The first, it's about increase in violence against women and girls. As people spend more and more time in confined spaces, often women find themselves sharing those spaces with people who are known to them, who have the potential of abusing them or have been abusers in the past. Normally, it may be possible for such women or girls to go out and seek support from a community member, from a local leader, from the police, from a helpline. But in these days of a lockdown, when your movement is so restricted, they find it very hard, nearly impossible, to access any form of support. The second is increase in care responsibilities. Often, when people are ill, the responsibility of taking care of the ill or those who are vulnerable invariably falls on women and girls. There are added responsibilities because people need more water when they're ill. We know that one of the big messages to stop the spread of COVID is about hand washing with soap and water. 780 million people do not have access to regular water supply that is safe. Which means that if you need more water, even to cleanse yourself and wash your hands, the burden still falls on the women and girls to walk longer in search of water. And the third thing is, with the lockdown, businesses are suffering, small enterprises are suffering, markets are closed, shops are closed, cafes, restaurants, pubs, cinemas, you name them, they're all closed. And that often has an impact on people who are not in the organized sector, who do not have a formal employment contract. The unorganized sector, as we call them, is the worst sufferer when the economy faces such a huge challenge. Now, 2/3 of the people in the unorganized sector, or 65% of them, tend to be women across most of the contexts that we work in. They're either garment workers, weavers, vegetable vendors, domestic helps, cleaners, shop assistants, waitresses. So again, when the economy slows down, when people lose jobs, the burden again falls on women, because 2/3 of them are most likely to lose their job. And they've already lost it in many of the countries that we work in. We are aware of that from our experience on the ground. So those are the three major impacts that we see on the lives of women and girls. Number one, increasing violence against women and girls. Number two, increase in caring responsibilities. And number three, loss of jobs. So that's the challenge. In such a challenging situation, how can we empower women and girls so that they can overcome this crisis and they can find themselves stronger and more resilient? Let me read out 3 very brief case studies that I have got from my colleagues around the world. So the first one is from my colleague Farah Kabir, who heads ActionAid's program in Bangladesh. She says, with cases of COVID-19 now confirmed in Cox's Bazar, there is a huge risk to hundreds of thousands of people living in the town's Rohingya refugee camp. Now, Cox's Bazar accommodates 800,000 people who have fled Myanmar because of the persecution, and this is kind of a large resettlement colony, very densely populated, and all of them are from the Rohingya community. I'm sure you'd have read about them in the newspapers or seen on television. So she carries on. Support for Rohingya women and girls facing an increased risk of violence is now more critical than ever. Rohingya women and girls are already marginalized in the camp community, and many face domestic violence on a daily basis. But the increased stress, economic worries, and forced coexistence caused by the risk of COVID-19 is resulting in even more abuse. Moving on to Liberia, my colleague Lakshmi Subramani, who heads our ActionAid program in Liberia, says, we are building on lessons learned during the Ebola crisis, when there was a dramatic increase in violence against women and girls, as the police were unable to respond, support or services reduced, and survivors were left unable to access justice. We are calling on governments to ensure that access to justice and women's protection are central to all national response plans. And McKenna Mobobia, ActionAid's country director in Kenya, says, ActionAid Kenya is calling on the government to ensure guaranteed paid sick leave is available to all workers, both in the formal and informal sectors, and that people living in the informal settlements will have access to free, clean drinking water and health facilities staffed by skilled professionals. Information can save lives. we have been working with the government on public awareness materials and ensuring that they are read, heard, and understood by communities across the nation. So, friends, I hope that gives you a sense of the challenge and something for you to think through as you come across the right solutions. Thank you for listening to me, and good luck.